One day, Thomas was shunting in a yard near Knapford. He had been working there due to Annie and Clarabelle being fitted with Wi-Fi for a few days. There were no replacement coaches, and plus less people were going to be traveling on his branch line, and Bertie would take the train that Thomas took for a few days while Bulgy took Bertie's run. No, wait, other way around. But anyway, Sir Topham Hatt realized Sodor needed help, so he decided to bring 2 engines to Sodor. Both of them would be female. One would arrive next week, and one would arrive 2 weeks later. The new engine arrived next week. Her name was Donnie. She was very friendly, but could be easily agitated. She smiled warmly and said hello to all the engines. They were very impressed by how she looked. She was painted yellow with the bogie system that looked like Edward, with four driving wheels and a set of four bogie wheels, though the tender had 8 wheels on it instead of Edward's standard 3. 6. Oh, for goodness sakes, 4. Anyway, Donnie also had a large funnel. They couldn't tell what class she was, but she looked very, very smart, unlike something they had ever seen before. With that, Donnie looked at the engines. "You all look beautiful." "Thank you," they all said. Donnie went to the yards and saw a train of wagons. They looked so strange. They were brown and somehow made of wood, with the letters NW on them. "What are these?" "These," said one of the workmen, "are the milk wagons." "Pah! Such a stupid name." "Anyway," said the man, "the milk wagons basically carry milk and transport it to all of the stations. James used to take this run, but, well, Thomas took it, then James took it, then nobody took it, and now we've finally gotten an engine, which is you, and you will be taking it for the next few days." "Well, if you say so." Donnie coupled up and tried pulling it. Come on!" She looked back, and the trucks giggled. "Come on, you whatever things, I guess." The trucks cackled with laughter. She's such a silly design. She doesn't even have a number. She's probably the sun." "The sun? How dare you!" She bashed the cars and bashed them again. No, she hated being called the sun because she was yellow. Her mind was like beep, beep, beep. Ah! Anyway, Donnie pulled the train away and kept griping about the trucks. She kept yelling very hostile threats. "I'll kill you. I'll scrap you, you little pieces of shit." No, forget it. What's even the point of saying that word? Donnie arrived at every station, always beefing the trucks when she kept going. Earlier that day, Edward had given her some advice. "Don't get agitated by the trucks. It'll only leave you in trouble." And she had forgotten all about that. Anyway, as Donnie continued on to the stations, there was a curve, and she was in a big rush. She went up a hill, and then she went up a steep hill, which was known as Gordon's Hill, as Gordon had gotten stuck on it. Edward went up the hill. What did I just say? Anyway, Donnie went up the hill, and this is a very common thing to happen on Sodor. The trucks held back on the hill. Then, when she reached the other side, they surged forward. Donnie raced down the tracks. Her wheels suddenly lost contact, and she hurtled off the track. The milk wagons, even though they were filled with milk, the wood made them very light, and they immediately fell over and smashed to kiddling. But even worse was to come. Gordon was coming down the line in the opposite direction. Donnie whistled a warning, but the steam had caused it to not be heard. He saw up ahead that there was wood, steel, and many kidlings all over the track. "Oh no, driver, brakes!" But no use. He tried braking, but he couldn't stop. He had been at high speed. His wheels were beginning to flatten. His tires were beginning to get flat. Suddenly, he smashed into the wood. He immediately lost contact with the rail and going into a field of grass. The express coaches were swayed from side to side. The second one fell over while the first one flew into the air and landed on Gordon's tender. It was a huge mess. The bottom of the first express coach had been destroyed, and passengers were now sitting in chemicals of coal. They began to cough, and the men who worked in there quickly got first aid kits and began to tend to the passengers. The second coach had glass shattered everywhere. It was wide open and the roof had fallen off. It was collapsed all around. There was the people lying around. Blood was splattered everywhere, but no one was severely killed, but many were severely injured. Five men were unconscious, 6 women were unconscious, and over 15 people were in general heavily damaged, you could say. Donnie lay on her side. Her wheels had almost completely fallen off, as their valve gear had been completely destroyed. Wooden planks lie inside her valve gear, as her paint was chipped up and scratched. Wooden frames and metal wheels were all around her, with scratches on her smoke box and everywhere. She sighed heavily. She was surrounded by a huge mess, like a fuel tanker had been sitting in the middle of the line, and 2 engines had crashed into it, and a huge explosion had happened. Everything was blown everywhere. Her tender was all away across the field, and it was sitting silently next to the hill. She felt so ashamed with her tender, even though it couldn't talk. It just lie on its wheels, not even worried. It just stayed there. Its wheels were a little crooked, but it stayed there and didn't even think about the mess. It was standing right next to injured people, maybe even murdered man, but it didn't do anything. She was very upset with herself and she was horrified at what she had just caused. She didn't just cause a simple accident like a truck hitting a buffer and falling over. She had caused a severe damage that had left the railway in shards, and she was worried about the future and what would happen to her and how she would be respected.